Welcome back to the Spin the Rock podcast. Today I've got my co-host with me,
Eugene?
and no Angel today, unfortunately, but the show must go on. Today, before we get in our topic, we got a little bit of news. Um, First off, Jared McCain is out with a knee injury, and it's no timetable for his return. Based on severity, like if I'm looking at it, he may be out for the season.
Which kind of sucks. So now rookie of the year is up for grabs again. Well, again, as if it was before, but
Right.
um yeah, it's just kind of unfortunate to see. He kind of went out like, wasn't Ant hurt the the second half of the season, basically in his rookie of
He
the year
was
race?
he was out for a good portion, but Jared McCain's got a meniscus tear, so I doubt we'll be seeing him again. At least with Ant, he did come back, I think.
Yeah, I think towards like
Um,
the later part of the season, but
but even Lamelo was out for a good portion of his rookie year too.
he
Um,
was out. If I remember correctly, like basically the entire first half of the season. And then he came back second half, went crazy. People forgot how crazy Ant was going. That's a whole nother rant. That's a whole nother
it's
rant, but
it's not impossible McCain comes back. Meniscus injuries are very differently. Like Robert Williams, I remember before playoffs 1 year had surgery 1 month before returning.
mhm,
So it's like a very quick turnaround. It could be the same for him, but I don't know if the Sixers want to risk like re-aggravating his injury because he's so young, and the Sixers season seems to be over to many people. So I personally wouldn't like to see him come back if it means risking anything. But like this rookie of the year, it was basically his. Like if we ended today, it was basically his. Now we're kind of like the race is so mid from this point on. Like
mhm,
maybe a Zach Edey, Risa Shea has some bright spots, I guess, but it's just not a fun rookie of the year race. It seems from this point on.
right. And I mean, we can only hope to get even more TikToks now that he won't be playing.
True.
So,
Our next bit of news is Dennis Schroeder was traded to the Warriors for DeAnthony Melton and 3 second round picks. Um, I'm as someone who's been forced to be a Warriors fan, this could be good for the Warriors because they got scoring off the bench, and that's what Schroeder does best. But I don't think it's going to be long until the Warriors like see him not play defense and get mad at him. So it's kind of like push and pull for this trade, but like they really gave up like a bag of chips for him.
yeah.
It's a very low risk trade, but yeah. How do you think of this one?
I mean, probably it's probably gonna end the same way like D'Lo ended. If I'm to compare it to anything, I could he add value to the Warriors? Yes. Me personally, after watching Schroeder on the Lakers, I feel like he can add value anywhere in the league as long as the scheme benefits him or whatever. But who's not going to benefit from the Warrior system? You know what I mean?
True.
So, like, I feel like it could work out, but I just don't think it will. And like, why did they make this trade too? Though, was Melton not producing, or
Well, Melton is out for the rest of the year. I don't know
oh,
what
didn't
I
know that.
think he tore his Achilles or something. So he hasn't even been playing, and even ever since the Warriors have been dropping. Like he was apparently a big piece to their offense and defense. Because at least he was a very good 3 point shooter and put effort on defense. Dennis Schroeder, good scorer, not as great of a 3 point shooter and not as great on defense. So it is a bit of a head scratcher. I know some people are talking about Schroeder might not even play for the Warriors. He might be using a trade like soon, but I don't know if that's a real
Hmm.
thing. I don't know if this hurts or helps their chances to get Jimmy Butler because I know they've been in the rumors for that. But like Warriors fans are just like Lakers or Heat fans. Like there's a rumor for every star player out there.
Right.
Um,
I think it could help a little bit, but it in terms of trading for Jimmy Butler, but not in a tremendous fashion.
yeah. It does feel like it might just come down to contracts to match Jimmy Butler's money, if
Yeah.
that is anything. But yeah, we'll have to see how that pans out. And then the final bit of news is the OKC Thunder will face the Milwaukee Bucks in the in-season tournament finals. Um, First of all, how much of the tournament have you been watching?
I'm not gonna lie, I only caught like 1 or 2 games. I've been so busy, bro.
Yeah. It doesn't help that these games jump between ESPN, ABC, TNT, and just for elim rounds. Like we're not talking about group stage right now. I did catch a little bit of Hawks Knicks, and that was a pretty good game. Like at one point, I thought the Hawks were done for. They were down double digits deep into the third quarter. I come back, and they're up, killing the Knicks. And they kind of ruined my prediction because I said Knicks are winning it all because they had something to prove. Apparently, they don't.
Nah, bro, like it's really looking like the Hawks are trying to prove something, even though they're losing against teams that they should win against, but they're winning against really good teams. So it's like, I don't know how that's going to come down later down the stretch. Like, are they going to perform even better, or are they just going to, shit the bed essentially? You know what I mean? But it's to me, it's just really interesting to see that's happening.
Like they've beaten the Cavs twice, but they've lost to the Wizards. That is the definition of up and down right there. It does. At least this felt like a lost season when we were looking at it preseason. But for some reason, this Hawks team has motivation, and they're playing with the motivation I thought the Knicks would have, and that's probably why they beat them out.
Right.
I think I did catch a little. I did catch a little bit of Rockets Warriors. It was pretty scrappy at points.
Mhm.
But other than that, it was a pretty. It turned out to be a fruitless game because we all know the Thunder was beating them, no matter who won. At least what these tournament games are good for is highlighting matchups we probably wouldn't have, cared about quite as much in the past. It At least from a fan perspective, it does feel like it's lacking a little bit in like the marketing, because it feels like the important emphasis they're putting on is like the tournament game itself, but it's really like these knockout rounds. I feel. Well, maybe I might be proven wrong in a classic finals game here in Thunder and Bucks. Like this is not really a matchup I pictured in my head as being prime time, but it makes sense. You got,
but here we are.
yeah. Like, how did the Bucks manage to turn it around and basically go lossless throughout this whole tournament?
Yeah,
It just makes no sense.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Now, even though we all know the NBA Cup basically doesn't mean anything in the long run, but it is still impressive to see that the Bucks have been doing what they're doing with the season that they've been having. So it should be a good game. Giannis, Shea, can't get enough of them. So I'm excited. Hopefully I can watch it. I'll be in class, unfortunately, but hopefully I can watch it.
If statistics are to be believed, Darvin Ham has never lost in season tournament game. So Bucks take it this time. The streak may continue.
The history is on their side.
Yeah. Okay. As for our main topic, we're basically discussing college and how basketball prospects have gone to the NBA, whether it be the significance of rings from certain schools or just how many players come from certain schools. Did you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll go ahead. So first one of the dead obvious ones. I'm going Duke. One of the most prestigious men's basketball programs in the country, thanks to Coach K. And even still now, a little slightly less prominent, I guess. But still a team to look out for. They've produced over 100, approximately 102 NBA players and 25 WNBA players, which I kind of find surprising because not only I've never heard like Duke's women's basketball be good,
Yeah. Like if I
So
hear women's basketball, I think UConn, not Duke. But
right,
Duke is
right.
Duke makes sense.
So 25, just over the course of the WNBA's existence, just goes to show that they have a pretty good program. What was another thing I was going to talk about? Let me see.
Well, it is definitely impressive, especially more so because the WNBA hasn't been around that long in comparison
Mhm.
to the NBA. So it's like right out the gate, their basketball program has been hitting all cylinders.
Right. And just to mention, some players that you may or may not know, for our audience that came out of Duke, you got Grayson Allen, Marvin Bagley, Paolo, RJ Barrett, Wendell Carter, Quinn Cook, Seth Curry, not Steph, Seth Curry. Um, who else? Who else? Who else? Who else?
Kyrie Irving, Jason
Yep,
Tatum, Zion, Brandon Ingram, like
Brandon. Yep,
it's a
Jalen
stack
Johnson,
school.
Trey Jones, Luke Kennard. Yeah, they got a wide range of alumni. Jalil Okafor. But yeah,
Yeah, like the variety is interesting, but it's also impressive how consistent they are in producing not just like good players, but all-star level players.
mhm,
Um, I see the desire for a player wanting to play there because it just like almost guarantees you a ticket to the NBA in many cases.
right. Especially if you're one of the top players in the nation, coming out of high school.
Yeah, I mean, I know Coach K isn't there anymore, um, but at least seeing what other players have said about him, it's easy to see why that would be such a pull
Mhm.
towards Duke. Like he's always like cared about his players. Like I remember Zion saying like he wanted to come back to Duke one more season. Coach K just said no. Like go make your money in the NBA. Like that's definitely someone who's watching out for his team.
Right. And two, just with that as well, like the whole culture, the brotherhood and the college atmosphere that Duke has, it's just one in a million, you know?
Definitely can't be replicated. So another big blue college I got, Kentucky. I had to bring them up. Most all stars produced in the NBA. At 19 total. Not only that, 132 total NBA players in the NBA, most ever. And they also have the most first round picks with 58. So they definitely, John Calipari has been a big part of this, even though if he's not there anymore. but the legacies left. You got Anthony Davis, you got John Wall, Devin Booker, DeMarcus Cousins, Karl Anthony Towns, Bam, um, Julius Randle, De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Maxey, and then some legacy names, be it Rajon Rondo, Antoine Walker, Dan Issel. Like, it's a very storied school. I know a big part of going to Kentucky is like you're again basically guaranteed an NBA spot. But for some reason, there have been years where John Calipari kind of received flack for that, like he's running an NBA mill rather than competing at the college level. Because I guess they're saying he only has one NCAA title when like that is a very very hard thing to do. Um,
Right. Not
and
easy.
right, and the system he has for like getting these players to the NBA, I think it should be seen as more impressive than it is like a fault of his.
Yeah.
Because like if it were so easy, not then every school would be probably doing it.
Mhm.
But yeah, Kentucky's always been impressive.
The stat that stood out to me, you said 58 out of like 130 players were drafted first round.
Yes.
So
So
like,
the rest would be either second round or undrafted, but they still made it to the league.
yeah, that's over 40% of the players were drafted in the first round. That's a crazy ratio. Like when you put it in the grand scheme of things, that's actually insane. Um, but yeah, like Kentucky's just Kentucky, and again, even though Calipari's not there anymore, there's still a school that you have to respect, and even fear because of just all of the history that they've had at that school. So yeah, Kentucky, one of the best, and probably will continue to be one of the best, no matter where they end up. Okay, my second one up in the tri-state area, and they got a dead even 1-to-1 ratio of players making it both in the NBA and WNBA. UConn. Now, with that being said, they have 47 players went on to the league, both men's and women's. And I find that also that WNBA stat to be pretty like insane. Now, I say that, but like Vaughn mentioned, the WNBA hasn't been around for as long as the NBA has. So for them to, particularly for Gino Auriemma, to produce as many women to go to the league as there are men in the league is pretty mind blowing. If that made any sense. UConn men's basketball, they're very off and on, off and on. Like they're either really, really good or they're just not a threat at all. Recently, now they're on back-to-back natties, so they're pretty good men's
Right.
basketball wise. Um, and women's basketball obviously has always been and probably will always be until Gino retires a powerhouse in women's basketball, women's collegiate basketball. So yeah, I don't know. It's just crazy. It to me, it like 47 and 47 is wild. It's wild. Um, but also some notable alums of UConn would be Ray Allen, Stephon Castle, Andre Drummond. I didn't even know that. Shabazz Napier. The real hoopers remember him, bro. Jeremy
Yeah, he's
Lamb.
cool.
um Yeah. WNBA, you have if anyone's familiar, what was her name? I'm gonna see it on here. Brianna Stewart. I forgot she went there. Tamika Williams, Maya Moore, obviously. Come on, bro.
Yeah, like we have MVPs and champions from here.
Like it's literally say Sue Bird, Swin Cash, literally a Hall of Famer. So yeah, lots of notable alumni from UConn as well. Oh, Kemba Walker.
Of course, yeah. Like,
how can I leave him out?
it is like, especially today, basically a basketball school synonymous with winning, and at least going to professional level, you're producing winners there as well. It is. There can't be another school out there who has the same number of WNBA players and NBA players. That has to be a one of one.
Right. Like I really don't think there is.
That's just like consistency throughout your whole program, which is surprising.
The
I
player
really don't.
development is
Yeah,
peak.
not just that, but like it really, you could really see like a lot of these players kind of grow up there and kind of learn, how to develop, post college years. So it really is impressive. Um, for my next school, got another powerhouse historically, UCLA. As far as winning goes, they have most NCAA championships, but on the NBA level, most NBA players that produced an NBA championship with 23 total. The only ones that are close is Kentucky with 19 and UNC with 18. Um, and not just individual players, but they're also tied with UNC for total NBA championships generated from their alumni. Uh, and as far as their players go, they have 18 different players who have been an all-star. And we could just go down the list. We got some legends here. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Russell Westbrook, Gail Goodrich, Kevin Love, Reggie Miller, Jamal Wilkes, Baron Davis, Drew Holiday, Zach LaVine, Bill Walton. Like, you could go so far back in NBA history and find, a UCLA member to all the way today playing actively. It's kind of like I don't know how you could have that legacy and let it continue until today. Like I don't know how a basketball program sets themselves up with a future like that for their players. Because at least with an NBA franchise, it makes sense. Like you got your ups and downs, but you're always having continuity. On a college platform, you have a player for at most 4 years, sometimes just 1 year. So to have such a great concentration of not just winning, but like development for these players is crazy.
All I gotta say is shout out Coach Wooden, bro. Shout out Coach
True.
Wooden. I know. So you were kind of talking about like you wonder how. Now this is just my best educated guess after reading his book, but like how they just keep the program, the continuity up and whatever. Um, I believe that they follow his pyramid of success. For those who know, but Coach Wooden came up with like this pyramid of, I guess, like traits, like character traits, for when he was coaching for his players to follow. And then that just kind of snowballed into this big, glorious thing. And that's one of the many reasons why they have so many championships, national championships. But yeah, I mean, UCLA is crazy. UCLA is definitely also one of those schools. Like for the most part, you I don't want to say you like fear them, but you got to give them their respect. You know, they've always had good players, great players. Um, will continue to have great players, and it's probably one of the best hoop schools on the West Coast. You know,
Mhm.
so yeah, UCLA is fire, and their court is dope too.
Right. Yeah, I can't argue that. Um, it's one thing to like have a legacy built to attract like incoming high end prospects, but it's one other thing to develop them and turn them into something great. So
Yeah,
yeah, or
and
all
like
these schools really.
know how to win. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's I feel like that's the hardest part, even just like for all schools, having your players have that winning, like the genuine winning mindset. Like you can't just say go out there and win. you know. um, but I forgot what I was gonna say. I was gonna say something. Gone forever.
Yeah. What's your next school?
A surprising one, which I was completely unaware of. I believe they're also in the tri-state area. St. John's. I think aren't they in like New York or something like that? St. John's University?
Uh, let me check.
But yeah, they
Yeah,
wait, where are they at? Where are they at?
it's in New York,
It's in New York?
Tonawanda, New York.
Bro, my laptop is so slow. I have so many tabs open. St. John's. Yeah, so they've produced 57 NBA players, which me personally, like I knew St. John's has been a pretty good basketball school to go to, but I also didn't realize that they were producing that many NBA players. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And some of their notable alumni would be Chris Mullin, Walter Berry, Ron Artest, which I had no idea he went. I didn't know where Ron Artest went, but I never would have guessed St. John's.
Ron Artest's the type of guy you just feel like he was born into the NBA. So yeah, it is strange to think of him in a St. John's uniform.
Seeing him in red, like that's so weird. But um, yeah, no, I thought St. John's was just interesting because like they have more than Syracuse, they have more than Villanova, which is you know crazy to think about. More than Ohio State, Michigan State. So it's like seeing how many they have compared to who you think would have more is just kind of like mind blowing.
They've always been like a respected school. Um, but we were talking about Kentucky, UCLA, and how they're such a high end for NBA players produced. I would not have pictured St. John's, but here they are. They're
Never.
definitely in the conversation.
Like they have more than UConn. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm. God, that's so funny. Um, okay. So we've been talking about a lot of winning, a lot of great successes going in the NBA. These players are, but that's not the reason why I chose this school. I chose University of Washington because they have produced some of the most fun and entertaining guards to watch in the NBA. We got Isaiah Thomas, famously a Boston Celtic for a short stint. Brandon Roy, Nate Robinson, Terrence Ross, Markel Fultz, DeJounte Murray. I
I
don't
didn't know
know
Brandon Roy
how.
went there.
Yeah, like I didn't know either. But it's Look, what an assortment of guards. A lot of them really small guards, be it Nate Robinson, Isaiah Thomas, even Brandon Roy, kind of on the small side.
Mhm.
Uh, it just be it athleticism, shot making, speed. I don't know if that was Washington's quota, is that they had to have a speedy guard who knew what he was doing, but that's what it really felt like. Like Terrence Ross was a highlight for dunks.
Right.
Um, and Markelle Fultz was really fun to watch, especially in college. Um, obviously, didn't really pan out in the NBA, but he still had a large vocal support behind him in the NBA. And of course, Dejounte Murray, one of the best. Well, was regarded as one of the best defending guards. I think
Mhm.
he's more of an offensive focused player these days. It's, one thing I do hate about this is, as fun as all of these guys were to watch, there's like something about them, like Isaiah Thomas, obviously hip injury. Brandon Roy, famously a what if because of injuries. Nate Robinson, what if he was 4 inches taller, 5 inches taller? Terrence Ross never really got the 1A opportunity. Markelle Fultz, obviously, like the Sixers situation. And DeJounte Murray, we got to hold our breath because Pelicans seem cursed right now. So hopefully no horrible injuries come their way. But yeah, I don't know how University of Washington scout, how the scouts are doing picking their guards, but they got some sort of magic there.
Bro, maybe UW is like cursed, bruh.
Maybe it. I didn't want to say it, but it could.
They might be cursed. Because, like, obviously they were all good while they were in college, but then they reach the NBA or don't, and then, like, get hurt or just don't play good or whatever. So it's like, maybe they're cursed. That's interesting. Obviously not, but
Not for the good reasons, but definitely worth noting for sure.
right. All right, for sure. I'll go my next one. Uh, Kind of a little bit more on the obvious end, I guess. But you got a team in the Midwest. I think they've been pretty good collegiate, pretty much like our entire life so far. Um, I'm going Kansas. They got 86 products. I thought it would have been a little bit more, just because like it seems like there's always like 3 or 4 like good players on the team at that time who like later go into the draft or whatever. So I thought it maybe not quite hit 100, but at least closer to 100. Um, so I'm kind of surprised it's at 86, but they also have some crazy alumni. Like they have some notable alumni, but then crazy alumni that you haven't heard in a fat minute. So obviously you got like people like Joel Embiid, Andrew Wiggins. Um, you got Udoka Azubuike.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Devontae Graham, Quentin Grimes, both Morris twins went to Kansas. I forgot about that. Kelly Oubre. But then you got names like so you got like Christian Brown, but then you got Mario Chalmers, bruh. Mario Chalmers went to Kansas. Nick Collison went to Kansas. Drew Gooden went to Kansas. If you know, you know. Kirk Heinrich went to Kansas. If you know, you know. That white boy had that strap. Ben McLemore. Ben McLemore went to Kansas. he was a dog at Kansas. He was going crazy at Kansas. But yeah, they've produced a lot of NBA talent, and they're also along the same lines of like, Duke's culture and just play like environment. It always feels like when you're at Kansas, you're playing in a playoff game because it's always a sold out crowd, constant noise is being made, fans trying to distract you and whatnot. So yeah, Kansas has like, I don't remember Kansas being bad. Like, I genuinely don't ever think they've been like considered bad, at least in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I can't
Yeah,
remember
like
the time.
they're always one of those teams. Like every time before March Madness, Bleacher Report or Complex Sports or someone will have a what if 5v5 of school alumni, and Kansas is definitely always up there in these what if scenarios. They're just consistent. Um, and they have been like a pretty solid winning team or desirable team to go for, but I feel like they don't have the history quite like a Duke or a UNC or the big one of the big blues or teams we've already discussed. It's pretty crazy how they've carved out their own success this way. Okay. Um, for my last school, I kind of just wanted something different from the other ones. I've talked about legacy and consistency with like UCLA, Ohio State, very respectable school. Uh, you add up their total all-star selections, it goes up to 33. Uh, you got John Havlicek, Jerry Lucas, Neil Johnston, Arnie Risen, and then there's a big gap between that and their next like all-star level player, which is Mike Conley, Michael Redd, and then D'Angelo Russell was their last one.
I didn't know Mike Conley went there.
Yeah, I don't know if he was a one and done.
It was either 1 or 2 years. He didn't stay there long. He didn't graduate from there though.
Right. Yeah, but like this, it's funny how, I mean, I don't know the history behind the gap between Arnie Risen and Mike Conley, but like they must have like turned their basketball program around, or maybe they've been producing role players or what. But like, it's such a odd jump for that, you know?
Mm. It could have been a plethora of things, to be honest. Just the coaching. I don't know, some like off the court stuff that was happening over a certain amount of time. It could have been a bunch of stuff. What year was Arnie Richardson or whatever?
Let me see. We go back John Havlicek. That's a long time ago.
No, yeah.
Last, oh my God. 1948.
Yeah, I don't know. Did they even have a program between that time? Like, that's a long time, bro.
I guess if we look at it, they had an early start. And it's not like that gap was like they were a terrible team. They just weren't producing like all-star level talent. Because that whole time they were definitely in like tournaments and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they just weren't like the beast they were in the 40s and 50s, I guess. But it is nice to see that they did have a rebound with the Mike Conley, Michael Redd, D'Angelo Russell. I think it's time they rebound again, man. I don't know how, but I mean, it's Ohio State. It's not like they're UCLA,
Right.
in California. I imagine it's tough to recruit, but at the same time, when you get a gem, it definitely feels more meaningful.
Mm-hmm. I will say, Now, obviously, recruiting is different in like every sport or whatever. But like nobody sees Ohio State as a basketball school. Ohio State's
Right.
football school. So that, at least for like recent times, that would probably make more sense as to why, you know, players don't want to necessarily sign there because they want, I don't know, they want to go to basketball school. You know what I mean? But it is, yeah, no, that is odd though. Like that big gap. And even recently too, like I guess, yeah, like how does that change how you scout? You know, you're seen as a basketball or as a football school. So like, I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't, because like you're looking at basketball players, obviously. You're not looking at, I mean, you could look at a dual prospect, you know, football, basketball.
Yeah,
But
that's
like,
true. I think on at least on the surface level, like if you're not really thinking too deep about it, you just dismiss Ohio State as a football school,
mm,
which is definitely could be a case for many. But I mean, if Ohio does like shore up its basketball program, I don't see why it couldn't become a basketball and a football school.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I
that was,
could, yeah.
that was my last one.
Uh, I'll just give an honorable mention.
Okay.
Texas, UT. Now, they don't have that many. They have 41 NBA
Mhm.
players, but they also have 24 WNBA players. So again, I didn't realize, you know, women's collegiate basketball at Texas was actually like that. So I thought that was an interesting stat as well. But on both sides, they have also very notable people who played there, such as Jared Allen, Kevin Durant, LaMarcus Aldridge, um, Jackson Hayes, Tristan Thompson, Miles Turner. Didn't know Miles Turner played there. PJ Tucker. And then on the women's side, you got Ariel Atkins, Charlie Collier, Joyner Holmes. So it's like Texas is producing, and they still could. Now, on the more recent side, you have the University of Houston, who's been popping off for like the past like 3 to 5 years. So they might take, you know, some recruits from, I don't know, who might be interested in Texas to come over to Houston. So, but we also might start seeing Houston products on the rise too now.
I imagine so, especially since they're such a famously defensive-minded basketball team. Um, the NBA loves defense
Yeah.
prospects, no matter like no matter how many people's defense is dead in modern NBA, they're very highly sought after.
Davion
Um,
Mitchell.
yes, but like also, I think part of it comes like to be such a defensive-minded program. I think that requires a lot of discipline from your prospects, which are like 18, 19-year olds.
Mhm.
And it's probably easy to get into the trap of like you want to be the leading scorer or the leading 3-point shooter, but like to build your culture on defense, I could definitely see NBA looking to Houston just based on that fact alone.
Mhm. But I will say, to I guess like semi counter your argument, like look at the players that I had named and like their demeanor and how they just, you know, play basketball. So like you had a Kevin Durant, you know, one of the star players. He can basically ask for what he wants. He's like an outlier. But then you got like LaMarcus Aldridge, Jared Allen, even Avery Bradley went to Texas. Like they're all kind of, you know, like I don't want to say soft spoken, but like timid. They all play defense really well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even Kevin Durant, like he can get up and block some shots if he needs to. He doesn't have to, but
Right.
he's got that 9-foot wingspan, so why not? um, but yeah, it seems like Texas is also defensive minded, but I do see what you're saying about Houston. Like they are like their defense wins championships pure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it'll definitely be a battle between Texas and Houston probably from here on out for recruits.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. It's interesting to see like their schools have such a specific identity versus in Ohio State, you don't really know what you would consider for them basketball wise, and then
Mhm.
I think separately also from the Texas team oriented stuff is Duke and Kentucky player oriented stuff. So it's a good mix of schools here.
Right. Which is also interesting too, because like it kind of is like the NBA, but at the same time not. Like like the Spurs for so long were team oriented. Now they're more or less player oriented around Wemby. So it's like you kind of see it in the league too, but everything just translates a little bit differently once they get drafted.
Yeah, for sure. I don't have any more schools unless you have a honorable mention.
Now that was Texas was my honorable mention.
Okay. Oh yeah, like we touched on the top 5 schools basically. A lot of these teams produce a lot of players because legacies they've left. And it makes it more attractive for high-end prospects and then development further. Obviously, if you're going to have a lot of players into the NBA, you increase your likelihood of those players winning championships. But it is interesting to see that despite Kentucky producing the most players, UCLA and actually holds the record for most players produced with an NBA championship. Um, yeah,
And most national championships,
most national championships, of course.
which we won't see broken for a while. We might
There's no
we might
way.
see it in our lifetime, but like
Mm.
we also might not.
It's definitely a tall mountain to climb.
Right.
So success always comes in different forms, but it's actually kind of fun to see how it started in college and went to the NBA. So that was kind of the point with a lot of these schools. If you like this episode, uh, give us a like or a favorite, or just make sure you're following us on all platforms, be it Twitter or Instagram or TikTok, and then just for keeping up with updates. And then see you next episode.